And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Bullet Grill House High School Sports Pregame Show. I'm Kraig Erwin. Alongside me, Brian Besh, Chris Moran on the far end down there. And, gosh, we've introduced ourselves each and every week as we progress on.
And we got the same names.
Same names. That hasn't changed. I'm still 5-9N Sports. You're still Polk County Enterprise. Chris, are you still running Bullet Grill House?
Still running Bullet Grill House.
You hadn't got fired yet?
Here.
No.
Hadn't got fired.
I tried.
Kept him here.
Good. College Game Day show here on Wednesday nights as well, pre-recorded for Saturday morning to come listen to while you're here at Bullet Grill House. But we're here to talk high school football, Week 7, Week 8, finishing off Week 7, moving into Week 8. And Brian, you and I did a podcast earlier this week. And,
We did.
And pretty good little deal that we put together there on the LSG network. But I guess
rave reviews.
Yes, I guess one of the biggest games out of Week 7 that we talked about in that was the Hampshire Finette win over West Orange Stark. 26-21 was the final over there.
Mm-hmm.
Game that was in our pick'ems, and Hampshire Finette had that as a home game, and that was really, really a big deal this last week. That game there for Hampshire Finette. And we've talked about that District 9 4A Division 2. Pretty competitive district when you look at the top 4 teams out of that district.
I went over to Goodrich High School yesterday and just talking to Coach King over there, and he follows a lot of high school football. And he just said, man, what is up with West Orange Stark? How do they have that record? And I said, Coach, I don't know. I said, these things run in cycles, and, if you've got 20, 30 years of just extreme success, you're going to have an off year, and this seems to be West Orange Stark's off year. But
well, there's a lot of factors in that for the West Orange Stark Mustangs. Is new coaching staff, new head coach over there, new game plan, same athletes, if you will.
And the other thing, too, that they've played a really rough schedule, and Hampshire Finette's good this year.
No, dude, they're really good. They're stupid good. Hampshire Finette is. But that game was in our pick'ems there this last week in Week 7 over there on 590N Sports there on Facebook. Another game that was in our pick'ems was New Caney was on the road, or Porter, on the road at Crosby. Mm-hmm. And, boy, did Porter make that a football game, 26-21 final. Crosby gets the win there. But really, I think what this tells me is really Porter's got things going in their direction.
They do. They slowly do. And, just scoreboard watching, Crosby's not winning by the same margin that you're used to seeing them here the past few years. Of course, they had that incredible run last year throughout the playoffs, almost reaching a state championship game.
Yep.
But, Porter's – you see the talent that's over there. You've had a couple of years where Splendor was really good and winning district championships. You've had years where New Caney has won district championships. And it's not like that talent's just going to stop at the school district limits there. It's all over that place, and it's just going to be a matter of time until they build that program into something special.
The game you was at this last week, also in our pick'ems, Livingston on the road, first district game of the season.
Yep.
69-34 win over Huffman. And, we kind of really beat this game up pretty hard in our podcast there on the LSG. But we'll talk briefly about this game.
400 yards rushing. I don't know any other way to say that. It's 400 yards rushing. They had 250 yards rushing at the half. They did give up 355 yards through the air, but at that point they had made Hargrave one-dimensional. They had a 30.
You're going to throw the ball and you're going to have to beat us in there.
Yeah, and there was a lot of busted coverages there. And look, Livingston by no means is settled in the defensive backfield. There's a ton of busted coverages where guys are just running wide open, and the Falcons missed a few that they could have had that would have gone for 70, 80 yards. So it's still a work in progress. But the things that are good are very good. The defensive line, the offensive line, the running backs. The quarterback can run the ball. They had two quarterbacks that played throughout the game. They combined for 100 yards rushing. You had two other running backs that had 100 yards apiece.
They had 100 yards rushing, and both of them had a touchdown, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, and so, I mean, you've got guys just breaking big runs. There's huge holes. I looked over at Ken, and I think we said it on air a couple of times while we were announcing. You and I could run through some of these holes that they're creating because they were big enough to drive cars through.
Well, you remember Ken played on that New Caney football team that almost made the playoffs in 1991.
And I bet he's still got some wheels. I bet he's still got some wheels, at least enough to, like I say, get through these holes.
And he doesn't have a set of headphones on, and we're going to talk about him in his playoffs or his flag football days down there in New Caney too. But
the biggest difference, like I say, and it was the same difference whenever Livingston won their district championship 2 years ago, and what they didn't have last year. It's offensive line play, and it all starts there for Coach Vanover because he wants to run the ball and then run the ball and then run the ball a little bit more, and then he's going to pass off of that.
So going over to East Texas News, the app over there, when you go in there, you click and read your article on that game, and Coach Vanover is talking about his defensive line and what they did there as well. Mm-hmm. So essentially, whenever you hear a lot of broadcasters and stuff talk about in high school football, winning that battle in the trenches, or hearing coaches. Yeah. That's essentially what Livingston did.
It's absolutely what they're doing, and anytime there's a 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, you know that they've got it because it's no kidding. Like, we were watching, and we had just an incredible view up there at that big press box they got up there. They're blowing the entire defensive line 5 yards off the ball, so there's no chance of anybody being stopped within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. But it's a deal to where, I mean, it sounds like a lot of yards for Huffman, and it is. It is. But just for example, at halftime, I remember the stat because I wrote it down. Huffman carried the ball 9 times. They had 9 yards. And we had the game before, Madisonville. They had a negative amount of yardage rushing the ball. I think it was negative 14 yards in rushing. So it's a deal to where they are making teams one-dimensional. That's exactly what they want to do. They're going to play a man defense, and they're going to keep everybody else in the box, and they're going to force you to throw the football.
Big game for the Livingston Lions, getting a great start into District 1-0. In district play over the Huffman Falcons. Another game that was in that district, Little Cypress Falls Divider, 36-29 was the final in that game. And then there was one more, Splendora. Was on the road at Lumberton, and Lumberton holding true to their number 5 spot in the Dave Campbell standings with the 52-10 victory.
That one's obviously not a surprise. It's kind of who you would think is going to finish first and last if you were probably guessing. I think most people would pick Lumberton to finish first right now. They'd probably pick most people would choose the Wildcats to finish last place. The one that I think had a few people surprised just because their non-district wasn't very good. Vider coming up and beating LCM.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of going to make this game in Livingston maybe even a little more difficult if that doesn't sound weird. Because they're backed into a corner now. They cannot go 0-2. This is a must-win game for them because if you go 0-2, you're falling way behind in this district, and you're at a point to where you have to win out just to hope maybe to sneak into the playoffs. And you don't want to be in that situation. So it's an all-or-nothing kind of proposition for the Bears this Friday.
Other scores going down in the area is we're going to jump out of the 4A Division 1. We'll jump down to 4A Division 2. Talk about that for a little bit. Jasper upsets Bridge City 35-7. Hardin Jefferson falls to Liberty 42-29. And there's a game I'm missing out of that district, and I don't see it on my screen, but that's okay.
Is that the West Orange game?
Yeah, the West Orange start. They fall to Dayton, wasn't it?
No, that was the week before.
That was the week before.
No, that was Nederland. West Orange fell to. Come on.
I just talked about it, Hampshire Finette.
Yeah. They run
Hampshire
together,
Finette, man. Jasper, West Hardin, Liberty. Yeah, it all runs together whenever you roll into Week 7. Jumping down to 10-3A Division 1, Anahuac all over Kirbyville 30-0. Tarkington falls to Orangefield 46-0, and Woodville jumping over into 9-3A. Crockett defeats Huntington 49-26. Palestine Westwood over Shepherd, which was really a surprise game that was in the Pick'ems. 42-14 was the final there.
And not so much the result as much as the score is a surprise.
No, in that game, I felt like could have went either way, but never seen Westwood holding Shepherd to 14 points. Now, with that being said, Shepherd has been a second-half football team, and it was a shutout through the first half for Palestine Westwood. Shepherd's been able to make adjustments in the second half and be able to put points on and come from behind and get a victory. I will say this: I know Shepherd is beat up right now.
Yeah.
They got another big game this week in district against Diboll. So then they go into a bye week and then roll into their final 2 weeks of district play, and it can't get here quick enough.
And we talked about it on a different podcast, but it just seems like all of their pivotal games where you're fighting for seeding, it comes right before that bye, and you're just kind of sitting there waiting around for a bye that comes super late in the season, and it's not going to come before you have to play all these games and maybe get the chance to heal up a little bit.
Exactly. New Waverly over Anderson Shire Road 35-12. Newton over Hemphill 34-0. Normandy falls to the Bulldogs, still undefeated. Camden Bulldogs 51-0.
They are indeed. They are really they have the opportunity to kind of work on the finer points of their game and just kind of iron out some of the small details, because this is a super talented team. The offense can score in many different ways. They've got 3 different quarterbacks that they can plug in at any point in time. They all do different things. Their athletes play all over the field. You're in 2A, so they're going to play on both sides of the football. But they're making plays all over the place. They're finding new people to make plays every single week. I'm reading about somebody new, and Coach is talking about somebody new that's just making a difference in some of these ball games. And you've got 21 seniors, and it's giving a chance for not only for some guys that probably would be on varsity if it wasn't that way to be down on JV and get some time down there, but you're giving some of your younger guys that are up on varsity some time to mature and be ready for later on in the season and whenever that playoff season hits.
Out of that district as well, Groveton falls to Jewett-Leon, and Comasnell falls to Lovelady 68-12. Game I was waiting around to talk to, I wanted to kind of wrap through all these scores, was the one score we didn't bring up. Cold Spring Trojans fall to Woodville over out District 9 3A. 18-8 was the final over there. And, man, Cold Spring just looked good in some areas, but just that 3-man defensive front's just not the answer for the Cold Spring Trojans. I mean, whenever you've had the opportunity to look at Crockett, you've had the opportunity to look at Hampshire Finette, you've had the opportunity now to look at Woodville, all those 3 teams alone running the same style offense, right? And not making any adjustments, not able to make those stops. That's a problem. Yeah. And Cold Spring's going to have to make some adjustments. I had a kid, Matthew Lesser, moved out after the week 1, moved to Tarkington, out of the middle linebacker spot, which was killer for the Trojans because he was a key playmaker on the defensive side of the ball, on defending that run. He just had a heart of fire, and just there wasn't nothing going to stop him. And he didn't care how big you were; he was going to run through you. But Cold Spring failed to capitalize on some mistakes against Woodville defensively. I can go on about the negative. And the negative outweighs the positive, really, whenever you get down and you look at this football game.
Well, you mentioned the defense, but obviously if you're scoring 8 points, obviously you got some problems on that side of the ball, too.
And that's where I was going to go. Yeah. You jump on, you're playing, the other side of the ball. I've said it since the Lumberton scrimmage, the left side of the offensive line is weak. There's no depth there. They're playing guys one way instead of both ways. You got some defensive a defensive end and a nose guard on defense that could play on the offensive side of the ball and be a huge asset. And at the 3A level, you got to have guys going both ways. And we're not big enough to go one way. Yeah. You gotta utilize it. The offensive line, you get on a 8 or 9 minute play drive, and those guys are wore out
Sure.
after about 6 minutes. And I'm not taking away from Coach Stanley and the staff with the conditioning because I know they work them boys out, but you can only do so much. And, I mean, it's smash mouth football, straight north and south. It's not, okay, left side of the offensive line is going to get a break. No.
Yeah.
You're moving forward, going north and south.
I hear coaches, and especially early on in the season, talk about, and because, I mean, even at the 4A level, Coach Vanover talks about all the time. I've heard Coach Ratliff down at the 2A level talk about it, how they've got a rotation where guys have to cross-train. They have to play multiple positions. Not only do they have to play multiple positions on one side of the football, but they've got to know how to play multiple positions sometimes on both sides of the football. Corrigan does it really well to where they've got guys playing 4 or 5 positions at times, and then they got to jump on special teams and, pick up a 6th and 7th job. But it's a deal, and especially early on in the year where you've got 95-degree weather and you've gone through practice for 4 days out of the week, and then here comes Friday, and it's still hot outside, and you've got a 10-play drive, and then maybe you got to play defense, and you've got somebody that's going to run the football, and they're going to churn out a 10-yard or a 10-play drive, and maybe there's an immediate turnover. You got to go back out there and play defense again. It wears on you, and you need some kind of rotation out there to where some kids can fill in, and there's not a huge drop once it happens.
And talking about rotations, you and I have had struggled with doing this, but we've been able to do it each and every week, is the rotation of the menu here at Bullet Grill House. I mean,
I've got a pretty solid rotation because I haven't had the same thing twice, and it's still everything's great.
And they added to the menu, so we would not duplicate.
I tried last year and this year, between the two combined, to try absolutely everything on the menu. I still haven't gotten through it, and we've been
Well, it's because he added 4 pages.
Yeah, so.
And I need to take some stuff off. Actually, I went to a food show yesterday, so I just got back.
So you got more ideas.
I got some more ideas, and I'm like, that's my problem. I'm like, I need to take a few things off, but there were some good ideas. I think the biggest thing we got coming is desserts. Everybody's always said we need more desserts. I saw some great desserts and some great dessert ideas, so I think we're going to add a handful of dessert. We have funnel cake fries, and those have been a huge hit, so I think we're going to add some, there's some great-looking cheesecakes, cookies, brownies.
I didn't even know there was a dessert menu.
I didn't either.
That's what I'm saying. Right now, all I have is funnel cake fries, but it's coming because I saw a ton. I got some new desserts coming.
Usually dessert for me is just picking off other people's plates.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of the same way, and we're here at Bullet Grill House every Wednesday night from 6 to basically 9. We're here bingo night on Wednesday nights here at Bullet Grill House. Y'all come out and say hi to us. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to come to you with segment 2 and talk about these districts and how they look right now. We're going to start at 6A, work our way down all the way to 2A, talk about the win-loss record in district play when we come back to the Bullet Grill House High School Sports Pregame Show right after this.